Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We have a panel today with some of the leading lights in the food industry at a really great time to have this conversation. On the panel, we have making a mess at the end, Irwin Simon, founder, chairman, CEO of Hain Celestial.
As long as I didn't spill my water on my
spill
one
it
of my
that
biggest
direction.
customers. Okay, that's great.
Well, I would have
that's great.
returned the favor.
Yeah.
So
This could be a great
500
panel.
500 SKUs delisted before we start.
oh, we need more cost of goods. Thanks.
Fighting with Irwin, we have Rodney McMullen, the chairman and CEO of the Kroger company. Here on my right, Jeff Hamilton, President, USA, Nestlé USA Foods Division. Did I get it right? And Jean-Christophe Flatin, President of Mars Edge.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So, gentlemen, a lot has happened in the food industry since we were at Global Conference last year. I'm just going to run through some highlights and then get your reactions. Start with some of the easier stuff. So many of your large food companies have stepped up your startup activity, made more acquisitions, rolled out venture funds and incubators. I'm sorry to say, the majority of the top CPG companies have seen sales declines over the last year. We've seen $1 billion invested into food and ag startups. Of course, we're continuing to experience consumer demand increase for healthier options and more transparency in their food products. We've seen the plant-based foods movement explode, with I think two of the country's leading meat producers, Cargill and Tyson's, actually investing in some of the young companies that have set out to disrupt the meat industry, companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible and Memphis Meat. Nestlé, a company we've long associated with chocolate, has sold its confectionery unit just a few months ago. And of course, Amazon acquired Whole Foods for $13.1 billion, a move one CEO called a thermonuclear bomb against the entire grocery industry. So it's been a good year. Lots of critics, lots of analysts have proclaimed this a food revolution. And I'd like to get your reactions to whether this is true. Are we seeing the tectonic plates shifting under our feet in the food industry? And Rodney, I'm going to start with you because in addition, I can't not say this, but in addition to being the CEO and chairman of Kroger, Rodney has been with the company since 1979 when he started as a part-time stock clerk. So you have really seen the ride for grocery. What's happening?
Well, I think that first of all, the only thing I know for sure is people will keep eating.
Okay.
That I feel very comfortable.
We all agree. Okay.
The way people eat is going to keep changing, and when I look at grocery retailing, usually over every 12 to 14 years, you have a significant change of something. Obviously, this time is driven more digital and convenience. But if you go back and look at 15 years ago, it was supercenters. If you go back before that, it was actually bigger stores.
Right.
And Costco, those types of stores. So, to me, it's one of those things that you're going to have every few years, and you're going to have winners and losers. But the customer always comes out ahead.
Well, would you like to share with us how many customers you serve a day at Kroger?
It's a little over 9 million per day. About half of the people in the United States would have one of our loyalty cards. And when you look at it on an annual basis, half of the households would come into one of our stores. And we look at it in terms of every day we have the opportunity to help 9 million people have a better day. And a better day for each one of us is something different. So the more that we can make it unique to that customer, the more successful we will be. Sometimes it's purely a high.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's suggestions for a great wine.
Well, so you have an incredible amount of data on how half of us eat.
But we only share it with you.
Okay, great. I'd love to see it. What are you seeing? Are consumer preferences changing? Is that true? Or is there more hype?
Well, there is no doubt it's changing. If you look at natural and organic, and produce especially, has been growing 5 to 15% year on year for multiple years. And I think part of it is just the quality of what you eat continues to get better. I can remember when natural and organic, this is before Irwin, tasted like cardboard. And today, you know, I can eat something healthy for me that tastes just as good as anything else.
Yeah. Well, Irwin, you've been a leader in natural and organics for, I won't say how long.
Not as many years as Rodney. But
Not as
far,
many
not
years as
far.
Rodney. What do you think about what we're seeing now? And now you're seeing some of the larger traditional food companies entering the natural and organic space in big numbers.
So it's interesting, Ryan, you know what Rodney said. I started in this industry working for Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and then I went to work for Slim Fast. And you know, it was like a shake in the morning, shake at lunch, and sensible meal, but most people never kept the weight off. And an interesting question you're probably going to ask me later is about brands. I saw the value in brands, brand equity, brand equity, brand equity. And I joke, I have two twin boys. I wanted to call one brand and one equity, but I lost out to, that. Back in 1993, I went to the first natural organic food show in Anaheim, California. And just as Rodney said, I said, look at this industry. Look what big food companies have been doing. Look at the ingredients, worse than some of the cigarette companies that they've been putting in here. This industry is going to change natural organics. And as Rodney said, you wanted to eat the box, not the food, because the box tastes better than the food, okay? So with that, as you come back today, and I don't know who was at the session this morning, the future of health. The whole future of health is what you eat. Is what you eat today, you're going to be wearing tomorrow, or it's going to be killing you tomorrow. You know, the whole thing you talk about Japan, when you turn 40, they make you go get your waist measured. Thank God it's not in America. And if not, they put you on a diet. So I have never seen so much change going on after 25 years. When I started this business in 1993, when I talked about genetically modified ingredients, everybody thought I was talking about a car. When I talked about organic, they thought I was some weirdo or some tree hugger out there. Disruption, what's happening now, and it's great disruption. I always say this here. When I started the company in Hain Celestial, and you know, from an ingredient standpoint, organic, gluten-free, GMO-free, plant-based, we've been in those business a long time. And when you talk about that, it's now how you're able to eat them. Before, you had to put a lot of mustard and a lot of ketchup, and that's what was on the burger. There was nothing else in between. But just coming back to that, it's the consumer is so educated today about ingredients. Consumers didn't know, as I said, what GMOs were, what, you know, hydrogenated oils. When Snackwell came out, and I don't have anybody here with Snackwell, high fructose corn sweetener was the first ingredient. It was fat-free. What's high fructose corn sweetener, doctor? Sugar. And what does sugar do to you? So we have such an educated consumer out there today in millennials. We have such an educated consumer today that understands price too and value. And we just, you know, the whole thing today, where do brands matter? So we're in a whole new world. I come back and I was just talking to Rodney about where the internet is playing a part in it today. I have a 22-year-old daughter. If I asked her tomorrow to open up a can of soup for me, she'd say, first of all, how do I open it? And secondly, if you want me to open it, you think I'm going to take anything out of a can. So the evolution, the change, and the good news is we've been doing it for 25 years. That's all we do. But what's next? And that's the big thing. What do you do next?
Well, and because I know we were both just at that Natural Expo West.
You ate a lot of food there. You were like...
It's delicious now. Give us a sense, when you went to the first one, did you say it was 1983, about how many people do you think were there?
So the last food show, and Ryan was there with Mike, and actually we held all the entrepreneurs there.
We did eat a lot.
And there was probably 5,000 people. This most recent one, there was 100,000. But of that 100,000, there was investment bankers, there was, you know, hedge funds, there was private equity groups. But it was 100,000 people from all over the world looking at current trends and what is the next evolution of food. And, you know, as Ryan said, listen, when we're happy, we eat. When we're sad, when we eat. When we celebrate, we eat. You know, when you come from a funeral, what's the first thing? What's going to be the food of the day, or what are we serving? So it's a big part of our life, and will continue to be that. So.
Yeah. All right, Jeff. I think I said to you yesterday that perhaps there was no more symbolic moment than this past year than when Nestlé sold confectionery. Can you tell us about that decision and why it was made?
Yeah, there are pragmatic and strategic reasons for that. I'd say pragmatically, we're a number 4 player in confectionery, and we try to be number 1 or number 2 in any category where we compete. So just pragmatically, we're not well positioned for the future there. And it also just did not fit well with our strategy where, the company is all about enhancing quality of life and contributing to a healthier future. And when we try to play our confectionery business into that strategy, it doesn't fit very well. So I'd say for both those reasons, we figured it's better to sell this to a company where there's a good strategic fit and where they have the potential to compete at a higher level. So Ferrero bought that company for us, and they're combining with their other assets, and they'll make a stronger go of it. And then with those proceeds, we've funded lots of major evolutions in our transitions. You've heard about all the acquisitions we've made over the last 4 or 5 years.
Share some of the acquisitions you've made, because they're also really quite telling.
So we acquired, first of all, we took a pretty strong investment stake in Freshly, which is a direct-to-consumer fresh prepared meals business, growing at over 100% a year, really impressive business. We acquired Sweet Earth Enlightened Foods, which is a plant-based protein company. We acquired Chameleon Cold Brew, and Blue Bottle Coffee, which many of you probably know from retail. In addition to that, more recently, we just acquired Atrium Innovations, which is a plant-based supplement company. So all that has occurred, both the divestiture and those acquisitions have all occurred in the last 12 months.
It's fantastic. Jean-Christophe, you've been in this industry for, I should have aggregated the years on this panel, maybe not, for quite a while. Tell me what you're seeing from a Mars perspective and what's happening in the industry.
Thank you. So 26 years is the answer to your question.
Okay.
So what I see, I think a lot in common with my friends here on stage, and clearly the bulk of the Mars legacy business is dealing with reinventing itself, rejuvenating its portfolio, reformulating products, and inventing new ways to connect with consumers. That's one side of that. But I think answering Irwine's question about what's next, I think the way, when we look at the world today, out of 9 billion people, 4 billion people do not get the nutrition they need. 2 billion because they don't have access to any, and 2 billion because they have in front of them excess calories, but they still don't get the nutrition they want. So it's a very serious challenge that is bringing the world a huge health, demographic, and societal challenge.
Yeah.
And there is clearly, it's too big a complex challenge so that any company, or one business model alone can solve it. And therefore, being a family-owned still companies, so I'm 26 years old, but I work for a 106 years old company, which is still family-owned, privately owned, proudly. We have this probably unique luxury and duty to look very long-term.
Yeah.
And looking at this challenge long-term, we decided to create a complete new business entity, which is Mars Edge. I'm leading with the mission, better word than ambition, with the mission to invent, build solutions for this huge challenge.
And how long ago did you launch Mars Edge?
So 7 months ago. So I'm a kind of toddler in front of you.
Yes.
But I think the mission is very humbling, but it's very exciting as well. That's when I can share with my kids and proudly say, this is what I'm doing. What could it mean? It could mean inventing and developing products that would be specifically targeting nutritional gaps and make that affordable and available to millions of people. It could equally be, if you look at people that are more on the lucky side of having a lot of food choices in front of them, developing solutions, applications, services to help them make the right food choices whilst recognizing that food is social, emotional, cultural. That's the lunches and dinners we want to share with our loved ones, with our friends, with our colleagues. So finding solution is not always easy, and we want to be there. And when I reflect on what do we have to bring to the party, I think, once again, 105 years old, we have a unique combination of two legs. We have a deep leg in science and technology. The Mars family has always believed strongly and big fans. We have decades-old partnership with universities. So this leg in science and technology is big. But we also have a unique gift in naming and understanding consumer needs and consumer preferences. And therefore, combining these two at the service of this very current challenge is what we want to do.
It's fantastic. And personally, I'm grateful that you're here today, because I know for those of us who've been in the food industry for a while, me far less time than all of you, we don't get to hear from Mars that often. as a privately held company, and I'm really grateful that you're here sharing this vision. And your comments just led in nicely to what I want to talk about next, which is there's been a lot of investment activity, a lot of excitement in the food industry, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're also having a global health crisis. And how do we ensure that this food revolution we're experiencing actually helps deal the global health crisis that we have? We might be at a pivotal moment where we can really solve some global. We have a global obesity crisis. We still have, which has led to skyrocketing rates of preventable disease. Of course, Dr. Heber, you could tell us all about that. We have some critics, academics, saying that this may actually be the first generation of children predicted to live shorter lives than their parents. And Jean-Christophe, as you said, we still have far too many people around the globe experiencing food insecurity and hunger. So, do you as food companies have a responsibility to help address this food crisis?
Well, from my perspective as a retailer, absolutely. Last year, we committed to zero waste, zero hunger. We also launched an app that we call Opt-Up, to where our customers can get insight on how they eat healthier. And you can see on the screen that person's score is a lot better than mine, but mine's 587. 600 is kind of considered the point. But one of the things that's really cool about this is you can look at things that you eat, and we'll give you suggestions on something that could be healthier for you. Well, I don't have connection, so it's not going to tell me, but like the Murray's Cheese Shop mozzarella cheese that I bought, it will tell me other items that will score better. Our customers opt into it, so you don't force it, but what we're trying to do is help the customer reduce their sugar intake on things that they will like equally as well.
And that's an app available for free to
It's free.
Any of your customers.
For all of our customers. You opt in, and we'll give you insight in terms of what you're eating and then other things that you can eat healthier. Today it's based on sugar. In the future we'll have salt and other things as well.
Fascinating. Irwin, what's Hain Celestial doing?
Number one, I'd like to get Coca-Cola, Diet Coke out of the front of here and not have it at here. So that's, but stepping back, listen, we've been doing this for 25 years, and with what we look at organic foods and the value of organic foods, and again, what obesity has done to this country, whether it's the processed foods and sugar, and it's not difficult. And I think the great news is every company today is taking a major, effect of their business and looking at how to reduce sugar, how to reduce artificial ingredients, how you get rid of processed ingredients. And that's why you come into a retailer today, they are so educated and so focused on it. And I think, whether it's their own brand or not, retailers have taken, a major playbook on this here. So number one, as I said earlier, all our products today have no genetically modified ingredients. The US and Canada are the only two countries that allow genetically modified ingredients. Over 40% of our products today are organic. And there is not science out there that says the effects of organic, but ever pick up a can of a pesticide that says, please wear protective clothing when spraying. But it's okay to eat the food, just spray it on, okay? When you come back in ingredients, most of our grocery products have 12 ingredients or less, and that's got to get down even lower than that. If it's a bag of potato chips, it should be the potatoes, the oil, and the seasonings. So we got to get all this other crap out of there, and that's something we've been doing from an ingredient standpoint. The other thing is, for the longest times, our labels were so confusing. Percentage of calories and fat, the ingredients, serving size. Now in 1995, the NLEA changed a lot of that, and labels today are a lot clearer. As I said before, you're going to walk in with your iPhone, your scan, and today we know how many calories in a day we want, how much sugar. And with that, you can't fool consumers today, and that's what's important. So we've been doing it, and it's something we'll continue to do. And one of the things, we have a big operation in India right now, as we work with the farmers over there, because pesticides was just part of growing over there. How you train these farmers not to be using pesticides and growing basmati rice. So we're the big companies, and we're the companies have to take a major role in here, is working with the farmers and educating everybody on what these ingredients are. And at the end of the day, hunger, listen, my philosophy is no kid, and my kids remind me that all the time, no kid should ever go to bed hungry, and no kid should ever go to school hungry. And how do we stamp out, childhood obesity? And again, if you come back and see with playing these games today and eating McDonald's French fries, and I saw this before in one of Mike's presentations this morning, when we used to say 15% more, we used to love to make these big pack sizes in food, 20% free. And what it does to our healthcare costs by putting 20% more, it's like $8 per person. So you're giving it free, and it costs us $8 per more on tax because we're giving them free.
Yeah.
So that's where we got to come back and understand all these serving sizes and educate that, and that's where companies need to take responsibility.
I think Mike said yesterday, when you get that decision to supersize for 25 cents more, it's actually $8 in cost, healthcare cost down the road.
A soda, like, here it is, get a big gulp and get more. It's what it costs. It's an extra $8 per person for healthcare costs just to do that.
All right, Jean-Christophe, Mars has also been long associated with chocolate and confection. So what's a candy company doing with regard to health?
So Mars is still partly in that business. And we view chocolate as an occasional treat as part of a healthy diet. And personally, I wouldn't want a life without, from time to time, a little chocolate treat. So what does it mean? And it comes with a duty, and a duty that we started a long time ago already. I think the themes are similar. First, it's about information and absolute transparency. And we've been the first one to put front pack labeling of every calories and nutrient in front of our pack last decade, not last month or last week, because it was trendy last decade. The second thing is offering choices. Choices of portions from 250 kilocalories, which is the maximum we sell, to much smaller, 150 kilocalories, so that you can enjoy this treat as an occasional pleasurable moment as part of your broader diet. So we are doing that. We also have, Mars is much more than a chocolate company. We also have a human food business. You may know some of our brands like Uncle Ben's, Rice or others. And what we are doing here is a lot of evolution of our recipes, bringing new recipes, as well as trying to bring back the family together for dinner time. Because once again, the reality is that we may talk nutrition, but for human beings, we consume food. And food is about this unique moment with our loved ones. So bringing families together, teaching parents and kids to cook together, and joining at the dinner table to enjoy a wonderful, nutritious meal is also part of what needs to happen, and we're doing a lot on that.
And it was 2016 that Mars announced the goal to deliver 1 billion healthy meals to dinner tables by 2021. So what does that mean, and is it on track?
So what does it mean is we looked at our portfolio in 2015 and we described what was the nutrition target we wanted to have for all our products, including sodium, we just talked about, including saturated fat and all of that. And we said by 2021, we want to be able to deliver 1 billion of those meals fully fitting with those nutritional guidelines. We are now 18 months in, and we will have our next progress report in June, but I can already disclose we have already delivered 600 million of them. So we are absolutely on track. And we keep accelerating both the rejuvenation of our portfolio as well as the introduction of new recipes and new products.
And just for clarity, for folks who don't know, about what portion of Mars business is confection?
It's not the biggest one. So most people would be surprised because most people know Mars as just being the candy company. The biggest portion of our business is pet care, actually. And I insist on pet care because it goes beyond pet food. It's a combination of nutritional products, specialized nutrition product, veterinary clinics. 1 veterinarian out of 5 in the US is working for Mars, and diagnostic. We also have human food, and confectionery is the second largest business after pet care.
I know this is off topic, but 1 out of 5 vets is working for Mars?
In the US.
Wow. Okay. Our next panel on pet care, we'll get into that. Jeff, for years, Nestlé has actually very publicly shared its goals, its nutrition and wellness goals with added sugar, sodium targets, I believe. Can you tell us where that is, where you are in your long-term strategy to address those nutrients of concern?
Yep. So we, just for context, we feed around 1 billion servings per day globally. We're in 191 countries, and we have the largest private nutrition research center in the world. And so, this is something we take very seriously, as you might imagine. In terms of the 2020 commitments we made, you're right, it's fat, sodium, and sugar that we've committed to reducing, and we measure that on a monthly basis and do internal checks. We're progressing very well.
Okay.
We've also made some internal commitments around positive nutrition and things that we can also do to add nutrition back into our products, such as increasing the amount of vegetables in our products, increasing the fiber levels, and also just overall improving the nutrient density of what goes into our products. So we feel really good about the progress we're making there. The other obvious thing that we've already talked about is where we're putting our money and what we're investing in and what we're helping to grow within our own portfolio. And so we're investing in these companies that we think are very well positioned from a nutrition, health, and wellness perspective. And we're helping them to grow and scale at ways they couldn't possibly have done on their own.
It's interesting listening to each of you throw out the numbers that you're reaching, the numbers of households and families that you're reaching, because it just occurred to me that you are touching probably each of us and our families, whether we realize it or not. Thank you for feeding us all. But also, Rodney and Jeff, you are two of the largest employers. I think, Rodney, you have about 450,000 employees in this country, third largest employer in the U.S. last I looked. What about as an employer? Are you taking any measures to help your employees reach their health goals and improve health?
Yeah, I love the question, and there's two things that
Don't
we
want to
do.
answer, but love the question.
No,
Yeah.
I love it. If you look at like Opt-Op, we
Okay.
tested it for a year with our associates to say, is it something that you find helpful?
I see.
Is it something that actually helps you eat healthier
Yeah.
in a way that's on your terms, not where you don't feel like somebody's looking over you?
Yeah.
And our associates gave us a lot of great feedback, so we incorporated that feedback before we launched it publicly. So we actually partner with our associates to help them eat healthier, and at the same time we have a better product when we share it publicly. The other thing that we do, if you look, we have 452,000 associates. Almost 1 million people in the U.S. would be on healthcare that we're providing. So one of the things that we started several years ago is, we call it Know Your Numbers, but know your cholesterol, know your sugar levels. We don't do anything to, if you're overweight, all we want you to do is to know your number. What we find is when people know where they stand, they do something about it.
Yeah.
So the only carrot we really have is if you want to enroll in the healthcare plan you want to enroll in, you have to know your numbers. By people knowing their number, like on high blood pressure, we've been able to reduce it by almost 50% of our associates that have high blood pressure. And it's purely because when you know something, you do something about it. So for us, it really is partnering with our associates.
That's remarkable that you have nearly 1 million people on your healthcare plan.
Yes.
Also a giant headache.
Jeff, but an opportunity too.
An incredible opportunity. Jeff, and I think last I looked, and I know this moves with different acquisitions, but about 323,000 employees for Nestlé worldwide. Or do you have employee wellness plans?
We do, yeah.
What does that look like?
So first thing we do, I think that's really been fun, is every year we have this STEPS challenge where the whole company downloads an app and they keep track of their steps, and we're all competing on a global basis, and it's amazing to see the impact that actually has on our students. Outside my office, I look over this pond and there's a little path around it, and 11 months of the year I'll maybe see, I don't know, half a dozen people walking around there at lunch, but that month that we're doing the step count, it's a parade of people trying to get their steps in over the lunch day. Now, ironically, I've just learned from Rodney that they have a program called Know Your Numbers. We have a program called Know Your Numbers. And it's almost exactly what Rodney and Kroger do. So we pay for people to do their. Do you really? Yeah. So maybe we're not so unique. And it's all very similar. They do their blood testing. They get the results back. We also provide them incentive to do a health survey, and then we provide for people, for example, one of the things that we'll do is if they have a BMI that's either at the overweight or obesity level, we provide professional healthcare coaching to them to help them make the appropriate nutritional and lifestyle changes to try to get their numbers back in line. And so that's something we really take an active interest in, and we're trying to improve upon that program every year.
That's fantastic. I want to pivot because you mentioned food waste and hunger. And another statistic that I think is startling is that by 2050, our growing global population will require an estimated 60% more food than we currently produce. But our current food production system is already straining our environment, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But also in the US, we waste about 40% of our food, which is, I'd read a stat that the country spends about $218 billion a year growing, processing, transporting, and then ultimately throwing away food. So will you tell us what Kroger's doing on food waste?
I briefly mentioned it before, but last October we committed to having zero hunger in the markets we operate in and zero waste as a company by 2025. And it's something that's been important to Kroger for years. We were an original founding member of Feeding America. And we've always just been, we leaned in as a company, but we didn't really lean in terms of how do we partner with others so that it's the whole community. It's just not what we do. So we know we can't do it on our own in the markets that we operate to eliminate hunger in those markets. But we will partner with Feeding America, we will partner with others to be able to do that. Because your point to me is it's absolutely embarrassing to all of us in the food business that anybody goes to bed hungry tonight.
Yes.
Because when you throw away 40% of the food, shame on each one of us. And I know years ago my wife and I started where at dinner we would split a meal when we go out, because you get enough food for more than way too much. Each one of us can partner and help on that. Last year we were able to provide over 300 million meals through Feeding America, and that's our associates making sure they capture the food in our stores that's still perfectly high quality to eat. But it's not something physically the way it looks that you would sell it to the customer. So we capture that. Our associates, the 452,000 associates across the company, do that, and partnering with over 300 food banks, help distribute that to people that are hungry. And we think there's even more to do. And we're deeply working with Feeding America right now to how do we even scale it bigger. How do we use the talents of people more than just our own company to eliminate hunger? Because there's absolutely no reason. There's no excuse.
That's great. In the health advocacy community, there's this saying that we feed our landfills more than we feed our hungry.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's the big thing. The cost today to have to throw out food, if once it gets at a code into landfill sites, it's much easier to ship it to some food bank or to ship it to feed the children, where it's going to be used instead of going to landfill sites and just being buried into the ground. So I think every company is trying to do it, and we're very involved with Feed the Children and the WIC program, but just from being in the baby food business and the formula business, and when you feed infants and toddlers their first food, the responsibility that you accept. But when you step back and you think how many can't afford baby formula or can't afford milk or baby food, and not starting, just you come back and think about it, not getting the right nutrition in the early days of their lives, how important that is. And that's a big part of what we make sure is never any baby food, formula, diapers, anything like that ever goes to a landfill site.
And Irwin's point there, that's the reason why we look at it zero hunger, zero waste, because we
Go hand in
know
hand.
if we eliminate the waste, it'll cause us to change our whole supply system.
Exactly.
I'd like to comment as well on
Yeah.
the two dimension. I think on the waste side, if I look at our food business, having the beauty of having rice, grains, whole grain solution is that they are a perfect match with leftovers from the vegetable from the day before. So what we have absolutely accentuated in our recipe suggestions is how can you use our product as a base to make delicious meals with things that you still have in your fridge are still perfectly okay, but providing solutions to people.
Through your
That's
Uncle Ben's. Through
Exactly,
Uncle
as an
Ben's.
example.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a
On the
great
hunger side, Mars' mission being to invent new nutritional solution to close nutritional gaps, we are highly involved with vegetable protein, because the only way we would do that in a sustainable manner is by tapping with local sources of vegetable protein. We have a project in India at the moment that requires to find vegetable protein locally. So looking at orphan crops that have disappeared, making sure that we calibrate their nutritional profile and supporting local farmers, exactly like Irvine is doing, to make sure that those crops are revitalized and used locally. So we talk about local raw materials, local production, local education and distribution is at the heart of what we want to do. So I'm exactly on your page, which is waste and hunger go hand in hand together, and there is a lot we can do.
And what you just raised about crops and orphan crops, I think ties in nicely to what I wanted to raise also, because I don't think we can talk about health of people and not talk about the health of the planet. And no pressure on the food industry, but you've been looked to help solve our global obesity crisis, but also have been pointed to the foods, not the industry, but our current food production system has been shown to be one of the key factors in climate change and a lot of environmental concerns. And so, no pressure, but we want you to save our health and our planet and through your policies. But Jeff, do you want to talk about what you're doing in supply chain and sustainability efforts within Nestlé?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of work around zero waste in our factories, both from a food waste perspective and also a water perspective. So that's a big initiative for us too. We're looking at reconfiguring our distribution supply networks to try to minimize the mileage that we put on our products between the factory and the consumer. There's a big opportunity for us there as well. And as Jean-Christophe just mentioned, we're also putting a lot of energy into much more plant-based meals, which we also know sort of end-to-end is a much more sustainable way of eating. The acquisition of Sweet Earth is a really good example of that, which is entirely the whole portfolio is plant-based, with about a third of it being vegan. But even if you look in our existing businesses, for example, in Lean Cuisine, we're launching a line this year which is called Lean Cuisine Origins, which is all plant-based and made with organic. And so those are the kinds of things that we're doing just to adjust our portfolio and to make sure that ultimately what we're doing is providing more sustainable solutions to the consumer.
And Irwin, are you shifting your portfolio more towards plant-based too, or what are you doing in that space?
So, interesting, plant-based, and since 2001, we've had a plant-based business in meat-free products called EU's out of Canada. We have a partnership, the Linda McCartney brand in the UK, with Paul McCartney and Stella and family, and great partners. And then we've had for a long time plant-based non-dairy business. Now, what we're shifting, Ryan, is it's becoming more and more of a global. So we've gone into Europe as we go into, India. And the other thing that's interesting today is we're coming up with baby foods, and even though it was always vegetables, peas, applesauce, etc., it's vegan products and plant-based, for infants and toddlers today. So we also have a big protein business where everything is antibiotic-free and organic, but everything, a protein, a chicken or a turkey is fed today is a vegetable-based diet, okay? So even what you feed, your animals today or your birds are vegetable-based diets.
Right. It's interesting, I was in the food industry, every industry, I feel like we focused on millennials. And there's been a lot of talk about millennials being the consumers that are driving so much of this change in the industry. But I just read about Gen Z coming up hot behind them.
They're big.
That Gen Z is demanding even more plant-based options. And for example, they consume 57% more tofu than millennials and 550% more non-dairy milk than millennials.
And millennials, once or twice a week, do have a plant-based meal once or twice a week. And, it was started by the McCartney family Meat-Free Monday, where every Monday you wouldn't have meat. So it is something that consistently is becoming bigger and bigger. And I think originally only 1% of the population were vegetarians or vegans. It's now up to 5-6% that continue. But you don't have to be a vegan. It's just how you take meat out of your diet. And as I said, being in the protein business, what I've seen, the average consumer eats 88 pounds of chicken a year and like 18 pounds of turkey, and that continues to grow, or pork, because of the reduction of red meat in your diet.
Yeah.
And fish as well.
And fish as well.
You know, I'd love to open up to questions, if that's okay. Putting you on the spot, so you can't really say no. Dr. Heber.
Yeah, thank you. So, you know, I think it was about 500 BC. Hippocrates gets the credit, but he probably had some collaborators that weren't listed on the publication. And he said, let medicine be thy food and thy food be medicine. And I think I want to just, you know, salute everybody on the panel, and especially Kroger for what they've done with this opt-up. And I just wrote a textbook called Primary Care Nutrition, in which I deal with all of the individual problems, hypertension, diabetes, starting with nutrition, ending up with medicine, so there's some credibility. But, you know, our medicine system is based on a military tradition. Drugs and surgery for the treatment of disease, and food has really been eliminated. Most other medical systems around the world do include nutrition. So I think it's time, and we have a thing called the National Board of Physician Nutrition Specialists with about 400 doctors that have been certified in nutrition. I think it's time to start partnering with you guys and using some of these tools to get some solutions, because it's great to get extra food, but a lot of this, as you know, is behavior. And I could see wellness coaches affiliated with your companies would end up selling more products that are just as profitable but healthier, and getting solutions, and people could see their blood pressure go down, just as you've seen in your employees. And I think it's an exciting era we're coming up with, and I would just encourage you to try to partner with some of the physician associations, American Society for Nutrition that I work with, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate the comment. The other thing that's so easy, you know, technology today just makes it so much easier to scale than what, you know, in the past it would have had to have been, you know, almost a one-on-one, and somebody could have done 10 or 15 people a day.
And now you have the data.
Right.
The data on each consumer and
Well,
what they're eating and
that's-
maybe what they need.
That's the big thing, data and content. And
Yeah.
we have so much data today. And, you know, when you start to feed infants and toddlers, and, you know, moms that are up feeding their children or dads during the middle of the night, and what you're communicating to them. And, you know, What to Expect used to be the book when, you know, everybody was, you know, but now it's changed, and it's just, again, you got to have data and content.
Just
I'm
to
hungry,
build-
we got a lot of data, right?
Just to build on because it was not a question, it was a wonderful invitation / provocation. I think I fully agree with you. What's at stake is this fundamental shift from a secondary care, which is, and I pay tribute to all the doctors and health system in the world, but what we call health system is very often a disease system. When do you enter the health system? Usually when you're sick. We talk about health data. A lot of them are disease data.
Right.
We talk about biomarkers of health. Very often they are biomarkers of disease,
illness.
and biomarkers of health are still being invented and need to be leveraged much more. So this silent but fundamental shift around the world from a secondary care that we desperately need and is wonderful, but cannot be the only solution. And nutrition being the determinant factor for health in 70 or 80% of the top 5 or top 10 conditions leading people to disease, nutrition has this wonderful role to play. So very happy to follow up. Thank
I'll
you.
just add one quick point.
Sure.
Sorry, Ryan. Which is, I think the point being made here is that, you know, the problems that we're facing today in global health, obesity, chronic disease, malnutrition, they haven't been created by any one stakeholder, and they won't be solved by any one stakeholder or any one approach. The problems that we face today are systematic,
Amen.
and the solutions have to be systematic, and absolutely as industry, we need to be a part of those solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, on Jeff's point, and I just had a chance to spend a little bit of time with the Milken American Dream project.
Yep.
And collaboration is going to be incredibly critical for us to solve these problems.
Yeah.
And it's both business and governments, because the solution is there. It's just a matter of getting the solution in a way that the consumer, the customer, actually engages.
Yeah, and that's we should maybe share sort of what we did yesterday. The panel and a number of food leaders in this room got together because of that very notion that no one sector is going to solve it alone. We gathered big food company CEOs and smaller company CEOs and global policymakers, leaders, academic experts, philanthropists, to begin a real conversation about how we start to pull all the levers that need to be pulled. All right, Jeremy won't put his hand down, so Jeremy Collar.
I just wanted to ask a question about a good segue to the system, which is animal production in the US creates 130 times more waste than humans, and we've got all these manure lagoons, etc. Are you going down the your food system down that far? are you going down to the farmers and the manure lagoons and all the waste that's being created to look at how sustainable that is?
And just, from a chicken and a turkey, I mean, we're looking at lots of things there in regards to how we're turning, and it's not how we're turning them into fuels and what else we're doing. So from our case, yes. And it's everything. I mean, we have a potato chip business, and what are we doing with the oils when we peel fruits and vegetables? So it's every bit of it what we're looking at wastage. But when it comes to animals, and we're not in the beef business or the pork business, but when it comes to chicken, and when you grow a chicken, it's 5.5 weeks, and a turkey is anywhere from 54 weeks. Let me tell you, there's a lot of wastage. Okay, and again, it's just not to bury it or throw it out. It's what we can do with it, and that's some things we're working with on.
I can comment on that
Did
as
you-
well, just which is that we have made commitments on cage-free eggs. We've made commitments on slower growth broiler chickens, which I think is one of the issues we're talking about. We're looking at other commitments in terms of the types of meat we're using. We're moving more and more to natural chicken, to antibiotic-free chicken, and to hormone-free beef. So those are all moves that we have to make gradually. It's frankly, the impact we would have on the industry if we did it all at once would be more than the industry could absorb. But as long as we're pushing in the right direction, the industry will move.
Shane?
Sure. Rodney, I just want to say I think the OptApp app is brilliant. I hope everyone starts using it. And one question in light of that, when you can opt up in the grocery store, have you all considered giving priority merchandising to the better for you products that you're also guiding folks to with the app? Because we all know what gets merchandised in the stores is really what the majority of purchases are. So for instance, have you considered replacing candy at checkout with healthier items?
Well, if you look at checkouts, most of our stores would have a mix, so we would have checkouts that would not have candy in it and would have candy. One of the things that we're massive believers in is transparency and letting the customer choose. Right. Because we find any time that we try to impose our beliefs on the customers, they reject in two ways. They reject against us, but they also reject in terms of they go back further than the progress they've made. So like in our opt-up, what we are doing is providing you information based on our machine learning on flavors that will be healthier for you based on what you tell us matters to you, that we think you'll like equally as well from a taste profile. And that's based on using lots of customers as insights with taste buds that are probably similar to yours. And to me, it's a journey in which you never arrive, which is the cool part. But we're just getting started. The customers are telling us they like it, and we'll use that customer feedback to keep making it better and better.
That's a great question, because it gets to I don't want anybody to take away my chocolate options either. And is there a way that you can still provide us all the options, but maybe use a little behavioral economics and shelf placement, some of that research to maybe trick my mind into seeing the healthier choice first?
When you go in a store, produce is almost always
It's true. That is pretty.
first.
But it's changed too. I was joking before, Rodney, when I started the natural organic food industry, Kroger was one of the first, but it was underneath the produce section or on top of the fridge. That's where they had the rice cakes. But now, natural organic products are so prevalent, they're integrated into mainstream, so it gives you the opportunity.
right
You
there.
want to buy a traditional soup, you want to buy traditional snacks, you have the opportunity there. And I think, what Rodney is saying is you got to leave it up to the consumer, because they may want to go home with those high-fat potato chips, but the alternative is there. So I think the retailers have done a good job integrating it instead of having it at the back of the store, their separate section.
Yeah, the hippie
As long as we
aisle.
get more space,
Yeah.
Ryan, one of the things we're doing is that we offer on the back of our packages now portion guidance, and depending on what the food is and what the nutritional content is of the food, we provide an example of what we think a responsible portion is and how to create a balanced meal with that being part of it. And so that's, I think, the kind of direction we can provide to help people make good decisions.
Yes.
Just wanted to build as well. I think you said something, Doctor, something crucial, which is a lot of the challenges we need to crack are behavioral. And I think what you hear through the answer is, especially in the younger generations, but overall, consumers don't want us to act, or anybody to act as cops above their shoulder, telling them what to do or being judged because of what they do. So the only way to empower people, empowering them with like the data, own your data or know your data for health tracks, because we have exactly the same tagline, by the way, sorry. It's a very shared one. But I think own your data. Imagine a solution where, like UpTop, you would have your ideal nutritional profile in your mobile phone, exactly like you may have any grocer preferences already profile. And imagine that profile would help you curate your choices in your daily life. You have lunch with your colleagues, you're about to go into seamless to order, your choices are curated. They are not made for you, but a pre-selection is made for you. You're looking for a restaurant to go with your family, and the menus are scanned for you, and instead of having 200 choices and you have no clue which one is good for you, there is one good which is already there. And same with the menu, etc., etc. So I think empowering consumers so that they can live healthier lives through nutrition is exactly what we want to do, but that we need to respect the consumer freedom.
I think the mic is back here, and then we'll come over here.
You talk about the plant protein, and I'm curious if that includes nuts, or if in your mind nuts are a completely separate category. And then how are you integrating nuts into your products, or is the nut allergies becoming overwhelming? I'm just curious.
And I'll come back and answer that because, working a lot with certain hospitals and parents that have kids that they leave in the morning and come in contact with a nut, how dangerous it can be. And I think for the longest time, companies never wanted to take the risk of putting on their packaging made in a plant where nuts are, or made in a plant where eggs or dairy. And, today, if nuts are in a plant, we will not make a product in there and we will claim it. So, a nut is a nut if it's plant-based or not. It's a highly, allergen product. So what I've seen is this here, and I'll come back from, Hain, because we do a lot of nut-free products in our Earth's Best products. We will not come out with a product if it's made in a nut, product in a plant has any type of contamination of nuts or anything there, because you never know how clean it's going to be.
I'd like to fit in a question over here. Yeah.
Hi there, guys. As a founder of a startup trying to make plant-based living more delicious and accessible to all, I applaud you all for your pursuits into plant-based. But beyond that, when we're trying to make something accessible, a key part of that is affordable. And we've talked about how food is the bridge between human and planetary health. And at its core in agriculture, I'd love to hear your guys' perspectives on whether organic is just a hipster fad for premium products, or whether actually at its core, this could very well be an important solution, both from a human health perspective to avoid the pesticides that otherwise are involved, and from a planetary health perspective with regards to our soil, where we're hearing now that we may be 7 or 8 harvests away from complete failure in parts of the world.
Yeah.
I think all of us would agree that it's not a short-term trend. I mean, it's a long-term trend. I look at natural and organic product for us has been growing double-digit for years. And if you look at our Simple Truth brand, we launched it 5 years ago. It's over a $2 billion brand today. And everything that we see on natural and organic, when you make it affordable, and years ago we decided that you didn't deserve a higher margin on a natural and organic product than you do on a regular product. And when we made that decision, it made all the difference in the world in our growth. It supported the Simple Truth product because we want to make eating healthy affordable. That's our job, and we're going to.
And I don't think, you come back today in regards to organic or your natural products, local products. I mean, I come back and say this here. We grow a lot of organic produce in California. We truck it back to the East Coast, okay? So we're trucking it, our CO2 factors, our emission controls. But in upstate New York, we can grow a lot of local product.
Yeah.
And yes, we may lose some yields because of insects. It's just we're not spraying it. So I come back and say this here. Healthy food should not be for 1-2%. Organic should not be perceived as, affordable, not affordable. And I will tell you, millennials and Gen Z, they are very, very price conscious, okay? And they will buy natural over organic. But they are not going to buy conventional products with that. So I don't think just because it's organic it means it's higher price.
Just comment quickly on that, which is it's certainly not a fad because we can see it growing every year. We monitor it very closely, and particularly with the younger generations, we know that that's how they're going to eat for the rest of their lives. So I think that's a very sustainable trend, and absolutely reflect that in what we bring to market. So if you look this year, we have organic products coming, at least made with organic products coming in Lean Cuisine and Stouffer's and California Pizza Kitchen, a whole line of products through the Sweet Earth Enlightened Foods brands. And so we're really pushing hard into that area. And one of the things that we're trying to do as part of that is to also work with our ingredient suppliers we bring a lot of scale and critical mass when we make those moves, and it also helps the industry shift. And so it's a role that we're trying to play, is to sort of help the industry, and by bringing more scale, we can also bring the costs down.
I know we have so many questions, but I want to ask one important question, and it's probably not fair, but you each get 60 seconds. Because there's so much disruption, I'd love to know your view of what does each of your companies look like in 5 years? What does Kroger look like in 5 years?
Totally seamless, totally transparent on the customer's terms at affordable price.
And are we going into your physical store to buy?
Sometimes. Sometimes it'll be delivery, sometimes it'll be pickup. Sometimes it'll be, I need it in an hour,
Yeah.
but it'll be on your terms.
All right, Irwin, what's Hain Celestial look like?
So first of all, health and wellness is not just an American fad, it's something global. What we're doing in India, what we're doing in China, we just had a group, working with Alibaba. So again, it's healthy food is a global phenomenon, so we'll be a bigger global company. By 2023, Nielsen says 20% of food will be sold over the internet, okay, e-commerce.
Yeah.
There's $800 billion of food sold every year in the U.S., so that will go from today about 2%, 16 billion to 160 billion dollars. So it will change, and again, as being a Canadian and a former hockey player, you skate where the puck is going, not where the puck is. So we're absolutely going to skate where the puck is going.
What's Nestlé going to look like?
Yeah, so the Nestlé purpose is enhancing quality of life and contributing to a healthier future, and I think you'll see our portfolio continue to evolve in that direction. That brings that to life. That's through reformulating our existing products, bringing new innovation to market that takes us in that same direction, and making acquisitions that help us reinforce that purpose.
Okay, and will Mars Edge have transformed Mars? What are we going to see in 5 years?
Yes, that would be great. That's my mission. Yes, for Mars Edge in 5 years, as I tell you, from 7 months today to 5 years, we want to have invented, developed, partnered, acquired, first targeted, affordable nutrition solutions that are closing nutritional gaps around the world in a very affordable manner, as well as developed, invented, acquired solutions and services and applications that will help people make healthier nutrition choices every day.
I was going to ask that question as in 20 years, which is I think how I would ask it of any other industry CEOs, but it feels like things are changing so fast that 5 years is feeling pretty space age.
1 year.
1 year, truly. And I've heard people say that last year was a year of disruption, and a lot of new faces entered the food space. But that 2018 is going to be the year that the large existing players are going to come back. So I actually think today you gave me a lot of optimism that not only are you here, but you're here and you're thinking of health, you're thinking of the planet, and I think we're all thinking about food because lunch is next. Thank you.